What's up, guys? This is Tim with BleepinJeep.com. If you've been following Project Green Machine, my 98 Jeep Cherokee, in the last several videos we trussed a forward 9-inch axle and did a disc brake conversion on it. That axle is ready to go into the Jeep and it will be replacing this Chrysler 8 1/4. Conveniently, right before starting this work, I planted my Jeep in a mud hole and the whole underside is completely covered in that red clay mud stuff. It's horrible. But in any event, there's no better way to work on a Jeep than when it's covered in mud. So the first thing was to remove the leaf springs, and they were stuck, absolutely stuck. So we tried torching them out. This is Travis. And no matter how hot we got these things, I could not get them to work, and I ended up snapping the bolts off. Once that was out of the way, Travis and Greg handled my rear axle over to the scrap pile there, and everything was clean and ready to go. So with the Jeep up on the lift, I made some access points to get the broken bolts out of the unibody. I just kind of hacked a hole in there and made both sides match. Then it was down to the parts store where I grabbed some fresh bolts, and then I bolted up the new 3-inch lift leaf springs from Rough Country. And you can see in this next shot here the access holes I made. I was able to fit a wrench in there and through bolt them, and they seem fairly secure. With the leaf springs in place, we're ready to put the rear axle on using RuffStuff Specialties Ubolt Eliminator kit. The Ubolt Eliminator kit replaces the factory perch on your axle if you're set up for leaf springs. Instead of U-bolts wrapping underneath the axle tube, it uses fine thread grade 8 bolts threaded into 1/2-inch plate to sandwich the leaf packs together. I chose these for two reasons. The first, because I didn't want anything below the axle tubes, and the second, I didn't want to drill holes through my truss just to wrap U-bolts underneath the bottom side of it. I had to fit the new perches to the truss. I just used a 2x4 to copy the angle at which they needed to be cut after getting a real approximate idea of what pinion angle was probably going to look like. I cut all four ears exactly the same at the same time, and they ended up fitting real nice. The next thing to do was to set the Jeep down on the springs until they slightly compressed and dial in pinion angle. I did that by putting together this highly sophisticated pinion angle finder out of a framing square and a 3-foot straight edge. I placed the framing square on the flat part of the yoke on the axle, pointed it straight at the output shaft of the T-case, and this ended up being just right for the pinion angle. The perch portion of the Ubolt Eliminator kit is 3/8 of an inch thick. I welded this nice and hot to ensure good penetration. I then disassembled the brakes, thoroughly painted the axle and brake brackets, then added Loctite to the grade 8 bolts and torqued them down to 50 foot-pounds. After torquing all the bolts, I began putting the brakes back together. I placed the rotors over the axle shafts and then assembled the calipers on the brackets. Everything went together perfectly. With the Ubolt Eliminator kit welded up on the axle, I was ready to install the soft lines that came with the disc brake conversion kit from RuffStuff Specialties. I didn't add these prior because I wanted to make sure that they'd clear everything. And I'm a big fan of symmetry, so I made both sides match. Everything looks very fluid and is perfectly symmetrical on this axle. I'm really grateful for that. Plumbing the vehicle's hard lines into the soft lines will be in a future video, as well as adding shock tabs. But for now, this will complete the rear end swap, getting rid of the Chrysler 8 1/4, swapping in this Ford 9-inch. And it is 5 inches wider than stock, and this is the vehicle under its own weight on that rear axle. Alright guys, thank you for watching. If you are not already, please be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the following video. Everything you see in this picture is stock Jeep Cherokee stuff. Everything here is going away. We'll be deleting it all and replacing it with a completely custom long arm suspension setup. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Alright, see you in the next video. Thanks.